be seated. Here come kids. Wonderful. No. Come on up, guys. So surprises can be kind of fun sometimes, right? I mean, it's a surprise party. Maybe mom and dad suddenly come in and say, hey, let's go have some ice cream. An extra present you weren't expecting. But sometimes surprises can be scary, too. I mean, if you're walking down the street and all of a sudden a big dog comes bounding at you out of the bushes with its teeth bared and barking, that's not a good kind of surprise. Or you're at school and the teacher says, hey, everybody take out a piece of paper. We're having a quiz. And that's not a good kind of surprise either, huh? Surprises can be fun or not so fun. But the key is what we do with them. To catch a surprise, you have to have your eyes open and your ears open. I've had this happen with my own son. He's watching TV, and I come into the room and say, hey, let's go get an ice cream, and he's not listening to me, and he misses it. Likewise, even with that pop quiz in the classroom, if you're not paying attention and you don't get that piece of paper out, by the time you finally catch up and are going, half the time for doing the quiz is done, and you're definitely going to get a bad grade because you weren't paying attention and you didn't take the time to really make sure you were on board and ready to respond. God always comes to us as a surprise. Sometimes those surprises are fun. Like when we weren't expecting anything good to happen at all, and all of a sudden something great happens, and that's pretty cool. And sometimes God can be kind of scary. It's no wonder that every time an angel shows up in Scripture, the first thing the angel says to anybody is, don't be afraid. Because sometimes we don't really want to encounter God in those moments, or at least not to hear what God has to say to us. But with God, just like with all those other surprises, it's what we do. And are we looking? And are we listening? Because, like my son watching TV and missing the invitation for ice cream, we might miss what God's doing if we don't have our eyes and ears open. And we could miss out on some really fun stuff. Or, like with not paying attention to the teacher, if we're not listening, we might miss the time to take a surprise that we may not have wanted and still turn it into something good. Christmas is about being surprised by God. It's about recognizing that God is going to come to us, not just in the places and the ways we're expecting, but in ways that we can't even yet imagine. And we've got to have our eyes and our ears open so that when God comes, we're ready to say yes, whatever it is. Let's go get a stamp, huh? God will not be limited. God will do things in God's own way, in God's own time. God will constantly catch us off guard and break all of the rules. God is always turning things upside down. This is the message at the heart of our gospel lesson this morning, as Joseph finds himself being completely surprised by God. Joseph is a good man. He has done everything right in life. But when his fiancée shows up pregnant and not by him, Joseph doesn't expect to find God at work in all of this. But a child is coming. And Joseph doesn't really have any time to get used to that idea or to understand it. Joseph doesn't have any time to lick the wounds to his own ego. All that he can do is to say yes or no to being a part of what God is doing. Now, Joseph's situation is pretty extraordinary. But in a way, what he undergoes is not too terribly unlike parenthood in general. Because no matter how well we might think that we have planned and prepared, there is no way to be ready for parenthood. Babies come when they come. And they always turn things upside down. We can try to convince ourselves that we are in control of the situation, but that's just an illusion. And just in case we might be holding too tightly to that illusion, something always happens to shake us back to reality. I will always remember my own son's dramatic entrance into the world. 8.5 weeks before her due date, my wife woke me up out of a deep sleep at 5 a.m. with the announcement that her water had broken. And after making her repeat that announcement a couple of times, and then after uttering a few colorful words that I will not share from the pulpit this morning, I bundled her into the car and rushed her up to the hospital in Nashville. The doctors were able to stabilize her for 3 days, but that baby was going to be born, and there was nothing that anyone could do to stop him. All that I could do was watch helplessly as Jamie came charging into the world. For 7 weeks after his birth, he was a ward of the neonatal intensive care unit. Doctors and nurses would tell us one set of protocols for his care, and by the next day, the protocols would change. Jennifer and I couldn't hold Jamie or even see him without first getting permission from the medical staff. Those 7 weeks were full of tears. Nothing went the way we planned it. We had no control over anything. And in that dangerous, risky place where we found ourselves almost completely powerless, we met God over and over and over again. Often there was no time to size up what God was doing. We just barely had time to tell God yes or no, and then hold on for the ride. That's the way that God works. God turns things upside down. God throws monkey wrenches into our well-laid plans. God comes in God's totally disruptive way and strips away our illusions of control. But these moments are not just about convincing us that we aren't in control. They are also opportunities. Opportunities to say yes to God. And even if we miss one opportunity to say yes, God continues to come, keeps coming, until our lives become a repetitive yes, back to the God whose entire being is one long, eternal yes to us. Our poem this morning is by Rowan Williams, the former Archbishop of Canterbury. It's called Advent Calendar. He will come like last leaf's fall, one night when the November wind has flayed the trees to bone and earth wakes choking on the mold, the soft shrouds folding. He will come like the frost, one morning when the shrinking earth opens on mist to find itself arrested in the net of alien, sword-set beauty. He will come like dark, one evening when the bursting red December sun draws up the sheet and penny masks its eye to yield the star-snowed fields of sky. He will come like crying in the night, like blood, like breaking as the earth writhes to toss him free. He will come like child.